sometime around the time we're 2 or 3 years old, we have the desire to do it myself. And we start saying, I want to do it myself rather than having other people help us. When we moved to Haiti, sometimes I felt like I was about 18 months old because I didn't know how to do anything. I couldn't speak the language. I didn't know how to do things. I needed help from somebody to do almost everything. One of the things that I needed help with was to go to market. So there was a man who lived close to us that would go to market with me. He didn't speak any English, and my Creole was very limited. So we had some interesting experiences at market. Um, and I remember one time we were going to buy some fruit of some kind, and I wanted some that weren't quite ripe yet. And so I wanted some that were green. And so he was choosing the fruit for us, and I wanted to tell him to get some green ones. And the word for green is vet, and the word for quick is veet. And so I kept saying veet, veet, and he was trying to do it faster and faster, but he wasn't getting the ones that I wanted. And then I realized I was saying the wrong word. I was saying the word for fast and not the word for green. And eventually we got it straightened out and we got some green ones, but it was interesting. But for a number of months, he went with me to market, and we would go to market. We would take Tap Tap to Miragwan to the market, and then at the end we were in town there, and at the end we would go to a store and I would buy a Coke for myself and one for him, and out in the country, people wanted small bills. They didn't want big money. They didn't want uh, 50 gourds or 100 gourd bills. They wanted small money because it was hard to make change. And so a lot of the vendors in the market, if you tried to give them a 50 gourd bill or a 100 gourd bill, they didn't want it because they didn't have change, and it would take all their small bills to make change. And a lot of the things we were buying were only 10 gourds, 20 gourds. They weren't very expensive. At that time, the exchange rate was very low compared to what it is now. It was probably about 7 or 8 gourds to a dollar, and so it was quite different than what it is now. But uh, after a number of months, I felt like, I should be able to go to market by myself. I should be able to do that without any help. So I started talking to Pastor Paul and the people there about, could I go to market by myself? And they're like, no, you can't go to market by yourself. And I say, why not? And they were saying, well, it's dangerous. Like, you go to Miragwan, to the town there by yourself. Like, there's all kinds of dangerous people there, and somebody's going to take you out on the waterfront, slit your throat, and steal your money. And no, you can't go by yourself. So I kept talking and I kept going with our neighbor man, and but eventually they agreed, okay, you can try it one time. Take your son with you, and you can go to market one time by yourself. But if anything happens, you're never going to market by yourself again. Okay. So my son Hans and I, we set off for market. I was feeling pretty confident about this. So we got to market and we were doing our shopping and going to the places we went. And I wanted to buy charcoal for cooking that week. And so I was buying food, and then this man came up to me, and he knew me, and I didn't know him, but he knew me, and so he said, "Oh, where's your helper?" And I said, "Oh, he didn't come today. We're doing it ourselves." And he's like, "Oh, I'll help you." And I said, "No, I don't need any help." But he just followed us around, and then after a while, it became obvious to him that I was looking for something that I couldn't find, and so he asked me, "What are you looking for?" And that's when I made my first mistake, and I told him, I'm looking for charcoal. And he said, oh, I know where to get charcoal. Follow me. So I followed him. I thought, well, maybe he does know. So we followed him, and he went here and there and everywhere and couldn't find charcoal and kept asking people. And finally, we wound out on the waterfront. And Hans said to me, Dad, what did they tell you? They told you somebody's going to take you out on the waterfront and slit your throat and steal your money. And it's, no, this guy's not going to slit my throat. I trust him. He knows who we are. He's from our community. I don't know him, but he knows us, and so I trust him. I'm not worried about him. Well, eventually we had to admit we couldn't find charcoal. So he said, well, do you want anything else? And I said, yeah, I want to buy some Coke. And so we went to the store, and he said, you want to buy a case of Coke? No. I said, I'm going to buy a Coke for me, one for my son, and I'll buy one for you. Now, my habit when I went to the store is I would lay a $50 or $100 gourd bill on the 150 or 100 gourd bill on the counter, and I would buy two Cokes. And they would say, we don't have change. And I would say, well, I don't either. And I would just wait, and I'd just leave it lay there. And eventually, they would dig out their change, and they would give me change. So I put a 50 gourd bill on the counter, and they said, we don't have change. And I said, I don't either. And we were going through our routine. And this man took the 50 gourd bill, and he said, I'll go get it changed for you and bring change back. So he took off. Hans said right away, Dad, that guy's not coming back. And I said, oh, no, no, he'll be back. I trust him. So we drank our Cokes, but after 40 minutes or so, I had to admit, no, he's not coming back. So we went looking for him. He had a very unique shirt on, uh, and I knew if I saw the shirt, I would know who he is. I didn't know that I would recognize his face, but I knew I would recognize the shirt. So we went all around the market. I couldn't find him. So we decided, well, we're going to have to go home. So I told Hans, don't tell anybody that I lost 50 gourds, or I'll never be able to go to market alone again. So we went back, and how did it go? Oh, fine, yeah, everything's good. And so I kept going to market by myself. And about 2 weeks later, Pastor Paul wanted to go to Mirguan to get cement, and he asked me to go along with him. So I did. And we hired a tap, and we went over to Mirguan. We were parked outside this store where they sold cement. I was waiting in the tap while Pastor Paul went in to negotiate for the cement. And we were on the same street that the store was in that I bought the Coke. And down the street, I saw that man with that shirt. And I knew immediately who he was. So I got out of the tap. I went after him. And there we were, just 2 buildings away from the store where he had taken my 50 gourds. So I said to him, I want my 50 gourds back. Where are the 50 gourds you said you were going to get changed and bring back? Oh, he said it wasn't me. I said, don't tell me that. I know it was you. 2 weeks ago, we were here, right there in that store. I put 50 gourds on the counter. You took it and said you were going to go get it changed, and you never came back. No, he said it wasn't me. I said, I would know you anywhere. I know it was you. Well, things were getting more exciting, and a crowd started to gather, and I got more flustered, and my Creole language ability deteriorated, and I was finding it harder and harder to say what I wanted to say, and he was refuting my ideas, and finally he said, oh yeah, I know what happened. The store cheated you. No, they didn't. No, the store didn't cheat me. You took my 50 gourds, and you said you were going to go get it changed and bring it back. Well, this was getting more and more heated, and finally a man stepped out of the crowd, and he stepped in between us, and he said, okay, we're going to settle this. So he said to the Haitian man, okay, you tell your story. So he said something about how, I don't remember what his account was, but it wasn't what actually happened. And then the man turned to me and said, okay, you say what your story is. So I told him what happened, and the Haitian man said, that had stepped in between us, said, okay. He said to the guy who had taken my 50 gourds, you owe him 50 gourds. I thought, fat chance, like he probably doesn't have 50 gourds. And all the crowd was like, yes, yes, that's what needs to happen. Well, this man reached in his pocket and he pulled out a 100 gourd bill. And he said, well, I'll go get it changed and I'll come back and I'll give us each 50. I said, no, 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 you're not going anywhere. No, no, that's what you did before. And so somebody in the crowd said, okay, give it to me. And so we gave it to them, and they went and got it changed, brought two 50s back, gave us each 50. Everything was good. I was so happy, and I was so excited. And so I went back to the and then sometime Pastor Paul came out of the store, and I told him what happened, and he just looked at me and he said, what? You mean 2 weeks ago you lost 50 gourds, and today you found the person on the street and got it back all by yourself? I said, yeah, I did. He said, okay, you can do anything. And So we were getting ready to go home, and we were on the tap tap with the cement. And here this man who had taken my 50 gourds came and got on the tap tap. And so he was telling Pastor Paul how the store had cheated me and he didn't want me to lose any money. And so he gave me 50 gourds of his own money. And he felt really bad that the store had cheated me. And so he wanted to make sure that I got my money back. And Pastor Paul was saying, "Oh, thank you. That's really kind of you. And I really appreciate that." And I was wondering, like, what's going on? Like, that isn't what happened. We got back to our home, got back to Kajak, and I asked Pastor Paul, what was that about? Like, he took my 50 gourds, and what he was saying, his story wasn't true, and you're thanking him. And he said, well, there's something you don't know. He said his wife and children come to our church. He doesn't come, but his wife and children come to our church. And if you would tell people that he stole 50 gourds from you, his wife and children would be so ashamed they would never come to church again. So he said, don't say anything to anyone. Let him tell his story. Everyone will know it's not true, but he will be able to maintain his honor. So that's what happened. I didn't say anything to anyone about it. He went all around the community and told people how the store had cheated me out of 50 gourds and he paid me back out of his own money. And he saved his honor and his self respect. And his wife and children continued to come to church. So I really wasn't prepared to do it myself, but there were some things I could do myself. And when we want to do things ourselves, it's good to know, can I do it myself? And to be wise about the things we can do ourselves and the things that we can't do by ourselves. Because there are things that all of us can do by ourselves. There are also things we need help with that we cannot do by ourselves.